Kevin Stefanski's job might be hanging by a thread, but his refusal to start. Shedeur Sanders reveals something deeper than football, a battle between ego and accountability. While the Cleveland Browns sit at 2-6 with an offense going nowhere, Stefanski appears more concerned with maintaining control than winning games. His curious loyalty to.
If you're into the real story and all the messy twists they don't show on highlight reels, go ahead and subscribe. And if you're sticking around to see how this Browns QB chaos plays out, you should definitely be subscribed.
Dillon Gabriel. Despite Gabriel's inconsistent play and whispers of behind-the-scenes political ties, points to a coach prioritizing self-preservation over strategic growth. With the defense breaking franchise records and the offense stalling, Stefanski's refusal to change quarterbacks looks less like strategy and more like stubborn defiance. The real crisis isn't just about play calling or win-loss records. It's about a leadership culture that's rejecting potential in favor of control. As long as the Browns bury a player like Sanders, whose pedigree and poise could shift their entire season, they'll remain a franchise at war with itself. Stefanski's stance might save his pride, but it's costing Cleveland the future. Kevin Stefanski has officially entered the hall of NFL coaching stubbornness, and not in the charming, gritty football guy way. No, we're talking about a full-blown masterclass in ego preservation, power plays, and organizational inertia that's dragging the Cleveland Browns into yet another season of underperformance and dysfunction. And at the center of it all, a baffling refusal to start one of the most hyped rookie quarterbacks in recent memory, Shedeur Sanders. Let's not sugarcoat this. The Browns are 2-6. Their offense is sputtering like a 2002 Honda Civic in a snowstorm. Meanwhile, their defense, led by the unstoppable Myles Garrett, is setting franchise records. But instead of using that defensive momentum to experiment, shake things up, or maybe give their dynamic rookie quarterback a shot, Kevin Stefanski is doubling down on mediocrity. He's holding the clipboard with one hand and his pride with the other, apparently more concerned about keeping control than saving the season. It's not even about football. It's about ego. Despite Shedeur Sanders checking all the boxes, talent, leadership, football IQ, legacy, Stefanski won't budge. Why? Because doing so would mean letting go of the narrative he's built around Dillon Gabriel, the current starter, and a player with reported ties to Stefanski's inner circle. The rumors of shared agency affiliations between the two only add more fuel to the fire, and fans aren't exactly buying the football reasons explanation. It's become painfully obvious. This is politics. NFL politics, team politics, maybe even personal politics. But it's definitely not strategy. And if Stefanski's goal was to preserve his job, he's going about it in the weirdest possible way. Because what he's really doing is sacrificing wins, team morale, and fan trust just to maintain control. You have to wonder, how bad does it have to get before accountability actually kicks in? Let's be clear. Shedeur Sanders didn't fall into the NFL by accident. He was raised in a football family. He's been coached by one of the sharpest minds in the game, and he's demonstrated the kind of poise and leadership that you want in your locker room. But instead of capitalizing on that, Stefanski is basically saying, I'd rather lose my job and give this kid a shot. And yes, he might actually mean it. Because for all the talk about player development and culture building, what we're seeing in Cleveland is a coach more concerned about optics than outcomes. Shedeur represents a threat. Not because he's a problem, but because he's a solution Stefanski didn't handpick. And when leadership is more interested in preserving their own decisions and improving the team, you end up exactly where the Browns are, talented, wasted, and stuck. What makes this even messier is that Stefanski did hand over play calling duties earlier this season, a move that looked like accountability on the surface. But instead of real change, it felt more like a PR patch job. Offensive coordinator Tommy Rees is now technically in charge of the offense, but the scheme hasn't improved and the quarterback situation remains exactly the same. It's performative accountability, a way to say, see, I'm doing something, while continuing to steer the ship into the same iceberg. And fans are noticing. They've seen this movie before. Quarterbacks with promise being wasted, while leadership clings to outdated ideas and fear-based decision-making. From Baker Mayfield to the Deshaun Watson roller coaster, Cleveland has consistently found a way to mismanage talent. And now, with Shedeur Sanders just sitting there, the cycle looks like it's repeating all over again. Even analysts are baffled. You've got NFL insiders raising eyebrows, fans flooding social media with demands, and still, Stefanski's resolve doesn't crack. It's almost poetic in the worst way, because it's not just a coaching decision anymore. It's a refusal to evolve, to adapt, to acknowledge that someone else might have the answer. And here's where it gets deeper. There's a theory circulating, and it's not exactly tinfoil hat territory, that the Sanders name itself triggers a sort of quiet bias within the league. The fear that giving Shedeur a chance means dealing with the full force of his potential success. The media attention, the confidence, the family legacy, the narrative. NFL culture loves a good underdog, but gets twitchy around confident black quarterbacks, especially ones connected to famous parents. The league has a long history of subtle gatekeeping, and Shedeur's draft journey raised some eyebrows for a reason. How does someone with his pedigree, stats, and leadership qualities fall so far down the draft board? It wasn't football. It was perception. And now that perception is costing Cleveland dearly. Because when a team that's already reeling refuses to inject life into its offense, refuses to try something different, even as the losses pile up, you know there's something bigger going on. Stefanski isn't just coaching games anymore. He's waging a quiet war of self-preservation. And at this point, it looks like he's more afraid of being overshadowed than of missing the playoffs. Let's talk about the elephant in the locker room, Dillon Gabriel. There's no hate here. Gabriel is a fine player, but he's not lighting it up. He's not saving games. He's not doing anything to justify the kind of loyalty he's been given. The Browns' offense is sluggish, predictable, and downright painful to watch. And yet, Shedeur stays on the bench. It's not just stubbornness, it's sabotage. Self-sabotage, team sabotage, fan base sabotage. And when you zoom out, the story gets even more bleak. Because this isn't just about Shedeur or Gabriel or Stefanski. It's about a franchise stuck in a cycle of fear, a front office allergic to risk, a team that keeps picking pride over progress. The Browns have pieces. The defense is elite. The talent is there. But leadership is holding it all hostage, one decision at a time. And that decision to keep Shedeur Sanders on the sidelines, that's the loudest one. It screams insecurity. It screams ego. It screams a total unwillingness to confront the obvious. What they're doing isn't working. And the longer Stefanski refuses to make the change, the more he drags the franchise down with him. The fans are tired. The players know. The media knows. The only one who doesn't, or refuses to admit it, is the head coach. If Shedeur does finally get the nod, it won't be because Stefanski saw the light. It'll be because he ran out of ways to avoid the fire. And by then, it might be too late. The damage will already be done. Cleveland could have had a breakout moment. A rookie QB with swagger, pedigree, and the potential to ignite the offense. Instead, they got politics, power struggles, and a coach who's openly prioritizing control over wins. Let that sink in. So here we are, another season circling the drain, another wasted opportunity, another leadership failure dressed up as strategic patience. And if things don't change soon, the Browns won't just lose games. They'll lose their fan base, their credibility, and what little hope they had to finally turn the corner. Because the truth is, this team doesn't need a new quarterback. It needs a new mindset, one that puts the team above the ego, the future above the fear, the talent above the politics. Until then, Cleveland stays stuck. Not because they can't win, but because they won't let themselves. If you've made it this far, I want to know what you think. Should Shedeur Sanders be starting right now? Are we witnessing one of the biggest mismanagements of rookie talent in recent memory? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and let's talk about it. And if you're just as tired of watching teams get in their own way, hit that like button. Share this with a fellow football fan, and make sure you're subscribed. There's more drama coming, and trust me, you won't want to miss it. Kevin Stefanski is operating like a man who sees the cliff edge and hits the gas anyway. There's no logical explanation left. Shedeur Sanders was brought in for a reason. He's not just a PR name or some flashy media darling. He's a quarterback with proven leadership, discipline, and accuracy. Traits the Browns are desperate for right now. But instead of tapping into that, Stefanski is sticking with a strategy that's clearly not working. You want to talk about wasted potential? This is it. This is the textbook version. While fans chant Sanders' name, hoping for a miracle, Stefanski acts like the season still has some secret master plan. And you can't help but wonder, who is this really about? Because it doesn't feel like he's coaching for wins anymore. It feels like he's coaching to prove a point. That point, that he makes the calls, that he controls the narrative, and that no rookie quarterback, no matter how skilled or charismatic, is going to upstage him. And if that sounds dramatic, well, it is. But look at the facts. The Browns have a 2-6 record. Their defense is elite. And their offense, lifeless, flatlining. A Frankenstein's monster of safe plays, low risk, and even low return. Any coach with a sense of urgency would shake things up by now. But Stefanski, he's watching the house burn and refusing to hand someone else a hose. And that's not leadership. That's vanity. And while all of this unfolds, there's something extra bitter about the fact that Shedeur Sanders wants to play. This isn't some aloof rookie, content with learning on the bench. He's made it clear he's ready. He's practiced like it. He's prepared like it. The guy is the definition of a competitor. But he's being sidelined not for lack of skill, but for lack of compliance with the unspoken power structure. Translation? He didn't come from Stefanski's circle, and that makes him expendable. Meanwhile, the rumors keep swirling. Why the intense loyalty to Dillon Gabriel? Why the refusal to acknowledge what everyone else sees? And when you trace the breadcrumbs, it keeps circling back to off-the-field ties, shared representation, quiet alliances, whispers of agency influence. It's not confirmed, of course, but the circumstantial smoke is thick enough to make fans choke. It starts to feel like the team is being run more like a country club than a football franchise, where loyalty matters more than performance, and personal networks outrank raw talent. It's a problem that's rotting the NFL from the inside, and Cleveland is the perfect storm. Because this city wants to believe again. The fans are loyal to a fault. They show up, they scream, they buy the jerseys, even when history tells them not to. And that's what makes this whole situation even more infuriating. This isn't just bad coaching. It's a betrayal of faith. They believed in Stefanski when he came in. They bought into the talk about culture, discipline, analytics. But all of that crumbles the moment you let your pride get in the way of doing what's best for the team. What's wild is that this team has everything else. They have the defense. They have offensive weapons who are dying for someone to throw them the ball. They have a quarterback on the roster with actual game-changing potential. But they're treating it like an experiment they're too scared to run. Shedeur Sanders could be a reset button, not just for defense, but for the entire vibe of the team. He brings energy, confidence, and a different kind of vision. And maybe that's what Stefanski is afraid of, that once the rookie takes over, the old excuses stop working. Because if Sanders comes in and immediately starts producing, then the spotlight shifts, the narrative changes, and suddenly, all those earlier losses start to look a lot more like coaching failures than player ones. It's no wonder Stefanski is clinging to the status quo. The moment he lets Shedeur take the reins, the accountability comes knocking. And in this league, once that door opens, it doesn't close easily. The bigger issue, though, this isn't just a Cleveland problem. This is how ego destroys franchises across the NFL. Coaches and execs prioritize their guys over the best guys. They'd rather fail on their terms than succeed on someone else's. It's toxic. It's common. And it's exactly why fans are losing patience league-wide. In this case, it's a perfect storm of mismanagement. Stefanski's control issues, internal politics, league-wide discomfort with the Sanders brand of confidence. It all feeds into the same outcome, a great player rotting on the bench while the team circles the drain. It's frustrating because we've seen this story before. Talented players overlooked because they don't fit the mold. And every time, it ends the same way, with the team left wondering what could have been. The Browns are standing at a crossroads. They can lean into fear and stubbornness, or they can take a risk on a player who actually gives them hope. The sad part? It's not even that risky. Giving Sanders a chance isn't reckless. It's necessary. At this point, what do they have to lose? Another game? Another fan? Because make no mistake, the fans are watching. And they're not blind. They see the politics. They see the power games. And if this continues, the outrage will grow louder than any stadium roar. Stefanski has a choice: save face or save the season. But he can't do both. There's a real opportunity here for redemption, for a comeback, for a shift in narrative that finally breaks the Browns out of their decades-long funk. But it starts with humility, with putting the team before the ego, with letting go of the fear that someone else's success might eclipse your own. And right now, Kevin Stefanski doesn't look ready to do that. So the Browns will keep floundering week after week, with a generational talent warming the bench, all because the people in charge are too afraid of what success might say about their past failures. It's not just disappointing. It's predictable. And that's the worst part, because Cleveland deserves better. The fans deserve better. The players deserve better. And Shedeur Sanders? He deserves a chance. This story is not over, but unless something changes fast, we all know how it ends. Another rebuild, another coach, another quarterback controversy, and another what if added to the long, sad list. Let's not pretend this is just a quarterback issue. What's happening in Cleveland is a full-blown identity crisis. You've got a team that wants to pretend it's building for the future, while actively refusing to make future-minded decisions. And no matter how Stefanski spins in the post-game interviews or how many vague, we believe in our guy's sound bites he throws out, the scoreboard doesn't lie. The offense is failing. The locker room energy is flat. And the decision-making? It's borderline delusional. At this point, keeping Shedeur Sanders on the bench feels less like a strategy and more like a grudge. And here's the kicker. People want to see him play. Fans, analysts, even some players are starting to hint at it. There's a growing tension, an almost silent pressure building. And everyone knows it's only a matter of time before something snaps. Either Stefanski caves and gives the kid his shot, or he rides this mess all the way to the unemployment line. Because if you're 2-6 with nothing to lose, what's the excuse for not trying something new? Unless you're afraid of what it proves. If Sanders comes in and shines, even just a little, that reflects poorly on the coaching staff. It calls into question every week he was benched, every loss that could have been a win, every decision justified with vague coach speak. Suddenly, the developmental timeline excuse collapses, and you're left staring at the real reason: ego. And you can't coach through ego. Not successfully, at least. Cleveland has had more quarterbacks than most teams have had offensive coordinators. And that instability doesn't just happen by accident. It happens when leadership refuses to commit to growth, when they choose to preserve image over innovation. Shedeur isn't just a player in this drama. He's a symbol of everything the team could be, if they'd just get out of their own way. But no, instead, they're prioritizing optics, control, fear. It's like watching someone drown while refusing the lifeboat because it wasn't their idea. You can feel it in the stadium. The tension, the frustration. The fans are fed up, and they have every right to be. This isn't some rebuild year where expectations were low. This was supposed to be a breakout season, a real chance to prove the Browns were more than just a meme. And yet here we are, a defense playing lights out, an offense playing dead, and a coach acting like starting the rookie would tear the fabric of space-time. It won't. What we'll do is give this team a spark. Shedeur Sanders has been underestimated at every turn, not because he lacks talent, but because the system doesn't know how to handle someone who plays with confidence and composure. There's this old-school discomfort in the NFL when a player walks in with swagger and substance. It throws people off. And when you add the Sanders name into the mix, the panic button gets hit even faster. But here's the truth. The kid's earned his shot. He's done the work. He's studied the playbook. He's handled the media with maturity. And while others play politics, he's just been preparing. Quietly, patiently, waiting for the opportunity that should have come weeks ago. And maybe that's the part Stefanski doesn't want to admit, that while he spent the season clinging to broken systems, Shedeur has been the one actually preparing to lead. Because leadership isn't just about age or tenure. It's about presence, decision-making, energy, and watching Sanders on the sidelines week after week. You can't help but feel like the team is being held hostage by a coach who's lost plot. Let's be honest. How many more losses does it take before the front office steps in? How long before the whispers become demands? Because if this trajectory holds, Stefanski won't just lose a locker room. He'll lose a fan base. And once that's gone, it's game over. The Browns have been bad before, but there's something uniquely frustrating about being almost good and still choosing the wrong path. This team could be electric. They have the tools. They have the roster. They have options, but they're choosing predictability over possibility. And it's not just sad, it's infuriating. Because when you have a player like Shedeur Sanders on a roster, and you choose not to use him, you're not just benching a quarterback. You're benching hope, momentum, change. And that's the story Cleveland keeps writing over and over again. A team that gets close enough to see the light, then turns around because someone in a headset thinks they know better. This could have been the season. This could have been the moment. Instead, it's become a cautionary tale. So here's what it comes down to. If Stefanski won't make the call, someone else needs to. Ownership, the front office. Someone with enough clarity to say what everyone's thinking. Play Shedeur Sanders. Stop protecting egos. Stop hiding behind strategy. And start building something real. Because if the Browns want to change the narrative, they have to stop repeating it. And if you're tired of watching leadership fumble talent like it's tradition, hit the like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and tell us how you'd handle the Shedeur Sanders situation. And make sure to subscribe. We're not done talking about this mess. Not even close.